Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this. All right, Josh, what's our topic for this week?
Well, our topic for this week is the Shadowfell. Most people who have played Dungeons and Dragons have heard of the Shadowfell, but what do you really know about it?
I mean, are you asking me? Because if you're asking me,
I was asking a question, and so I was leaving it up in the air whether you wanted to answer it or not. So if you want to, go ahead.
I don't know.
You don't know very much.
Nope.
Okay.
Is there a shadow in the Shadowfell?
I guess there's a lot, technically.
Do you have to fall to get into the Shadowfell?
No.
Or can you climb?
It's been known as a few names.
Why don't they call it the Shadow Climb?
Like the Plane of Shadows, Shadowland, or simply Shadow. It exists as a sort of counterpart to the Feywild because they are both, in a sense, opposite reflections of the material plane.
So it's a shadow of the material plane.
Kind of. Unlike the Feywild, it is, as the name suggests, a shadowed land, with a desolate landscape full of death and decay. The plane looks like a darker version of the material plane, with dark apparitions and shadow monsters. There is a pervasive cold to the plane, and fog covers much of its surfaces. It used to be harder to get into, so it is studied a lot less than the Feywild is. The major way that people cross into it now is through holes in the material plane called one of two things, either shadow crossings or vortices. These portals appear in places of shadow and fog, connecting the planes for a short while. At most, they last a day. These entry
are they just random? Are they
Yes.
random, or can they just be any? Are they? They're just random.
Yeah, it has to be places of shadow and fog. There is a Shadowfell fog that kind of is kind of sentient in a way. Some people think it's the Raven Queen controlling it. Other people believe it's just part of the plane. That specific fog has a sentience and a choice. It kind of does what it takes people in based on who they are and how they do things. Now, these entry and exit points, besides that Shadowfell fog, are unpredictable, as well as their duration is also unpredictable. Now, the Shadowfell wasn't always, as it is today, a reflection of the material plane. And the same reason why it's not the same as it was before is the same reason why it used to be harder to get into before. Because in the big cosmological view of the planes, the Shadowfell has actually transferred locations from the ethereal plane to the astral sea to the ethereal plane and been moved around and affected by mighty magics of deity-level beings. But to get the Shadowfell where it is now, the goddess of darkness, Shar, used the magic of a plane called the negative energy plane to enhance what was simply the plane of shadows, a demi-plane, into the powerful full-on plane that we know it as today. And now it is this part of the material plane. When it is stated that the Shadowfell is a reflection of the material plane, it's kind of meant literally. You will find cities, rivers, lakes, even roads that are on both planes. They're the same on both planes. But the aspects of them are off and bleak and twisted in the Shadowfell. A good example for this that I've heard from the YouTuber Mr. Rex, he said, think of an orc attack, like an orc army attack on a city. In the material plane, a group of adventurers, maybe it's your party, stops them. If you travel to the plane of shadows, you could see the city conquered by those orcs. And so it's a darker reflection of what happened in the real world, in the material plane. Even more than that, you can find people you know from the material realm in the Shadowfell as bleak reflections of themselves, called Shadowborn. These Shadowborn are gaunt, paler versions of their counterparts on the material plane. These Shadowborn are kind of accentuated evil versions of their material plane selves, and seers and visionaries and people that are kind of trying to predict the future will oftentimes travel into the Shadowfell to kind of get a gauge on a person. See this person that is a bad version of that person where all of their bad traits are accentuated and kind of use that to understand the person better.
So do they represent like their evil? Does it represent your evil? Like your evil side?
It's kind of just with that accentuated. It's not fully an evil person. It's just all of your evil traits, whether you're greedy or you're gluttonous or whatever evil thing that is your vice or whatever, it is accentuated and expanded upon in this other world. Also, because of just the natural effects of the Shadowfell, there are other kind of changes to who you are. It kind of makes people paranoid. It just affects your brain. It can even make you kind of hear voices and kind of go crazy.
So if you had like a gluttony, if one of your 7 deadly sins is gluttony or something, does that mean the person in the Shadowfell would still look just like you, or like would they be larger because they overeat so much, like, or over consuming?
It depends. If they are gluttonous and they are eating a lot, then yes, they would be bigger and larger than you. Same as how you can have a whole city that was sacked on the material plane. Well, no, sacked in the Shadowfell, but is fine in the material plane.
Got it.
There's still these reflections, but they're just... And so that's the thing. If you want to like go super hardcore in it, you could think way back on everything in the Shadowfell, like every action that happened in the history of your world, and just see how that would change things and make that affect the Shadowfell as if it went a darker way. But you also don't have to think that far ahead if you don't want to, that far behind if you don't want to. You could just make it be literally this last event went the darker way. The plane itself is constantly shifting. So making a map of it is nearly impossible, because sometimes within a few hours to within a few days, that map is now obsolete because it's completely changed. The Shadowfell gets great power from horrible acts in the real world. So if someone of, let's say, great virtue decided to betray his allies and turn incredibly evil, killing them, the location in the Shadowfell where he was at the time would become a location of great power, physically changing that area drastically and linking that person to that part of the Shadowfell.
Is there always like a link to you in the Shadowfell? Like, or is that based on chance? Like, what's the deal with that?
Well, I mean, there's always a version of you in the Shadowfell. There's always these Shadowborn of people in the real world.
Got it.
But there's also a lot of death and undeath and things that happen in that world. So it wouldn't be out of there's still a life going on for that Shadowborn. So it is possible that Shadowborn's been killed long ago in a war or something that happened in the Shadowfell that did not happen in the material plane.
So like you're born automatically in the Shadowfell, the counterpart to you is born, and then they have their own life and you have your own life, but they're living as your evil self and you're living as your normal self.
Yep. And there's ways that you affect each other, but I haven't got to that yet.
Oh.
Now, when you commit these drastic evils and change the Shadowfell, many powerful entities can feed off that energy and grow more powerful. Some go as far as to try and grab the person from the material plane, forcing them to live in this domain they've created, because they can gain even more power from you that way. These domains of these places that people have affected in the Shadowfell, they are called dread domains. And these domains become their own demi-planes inside of the Shadowfell. If the creature who's caused it is brought there, they can no longer escape it, but they gain immense power within. Some good gods have gone so far as to force evil creatures into the demi-planes they have created, so that they will be trapped there, unable to hurt anyone else. Entering these areas are easy and must be avoided when traveling through the Shadowfell, because leaving them is nearly impossible. Curse of Strahd is set in Barovia. Barovia was once a place on the material plane, but was moved to Strahd's dread domain to imprison Strahd there.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, is Curse of Strahd then one of these?
Yes, yeah. Curse of Strahd is set 100%. The whole campaign is set in the dread domain of Strahd. So he is stronger there, but he's also stuck there. People with great destinies that die too soon can sometimes be reborn through their dark clone in the Shadowfell. This is called a dark awakening. They become melancholy and feel lifeless even after exiting the Shadowfell. Sometimes this process goes awry, and instead of just awakening in the Shadowfell, their mind is split into two halves. One awakening in the Shadowfell, the other rising up in the original body. These halves separate the good and the evil parts of the mind, and neither of them know that the other exists. So your friend could die in front of you, like fully die, all of a sudden rise up and be their evil self, or be an even better version of themselves and be just very different from who they were when they died.
And do they remember their past self at all, or not?
Oh yeah, they remember they remember all their history. It's just their kind of emotional self is split in half. Any spell that uses shadow for illusions actually pulls that shadow from the Shadowfell. Like the Feywild, time travels differently in the Shadowfell, and this is further exasperated by the lack of any sun, moon, or stars in the Shadowfell, so there is nothing to track day-night cycles with. Adventuring for too long in the Shadowfell can actually start to alter you, like the Shadowborn. You go gaunt and melancholy, even gaining apathy as you progress further and further into this depression. Time seems to slow down to you, making the days feel longer and longer. It is easy to lose time here, and by being here too long, you can even become a shade, a creature of pure shadow. I heard another example from Mr. Rex is he was talking about how once you are affected by this state, say your ally dies, and you are just heartbroken by this, and you fall down and cry, and say you think you're crying there for an hour. If you're in this state and time just isn't flowing for you the way it should, you could be there for what you think feels like an hour, but could be weeks.
Or minutes, right? Technically?
No. The days feel longer and longer once you are in this kind of depressive state. So an hour for you is a lot longer. Now, in the Feywild, yes, if you leave the Feywild, you have the chance of time flowing less or more.
So the Shadowfell pretty much is always longer?
Yeah, mostly because of how your brain is affected by the Shadowfell's kind of innate magic. Now, remember in the previous episode where we talked about Netheril and Karsus's Folly? We talked about...
Oh, yeah, totally. I remember that.
Oh, we talked about those... We talked about those powerful magics and their floating cities. One of the cities saved themselves from when all the cities came collapsing down by teleporting their whole city through... Okay, I'm going to mess this up. Thultanthar? Before Karsus screwed up and all the cities fell. Before that, Thultanthar was able to teleport itself into the Shadowfell. After everything calmed down, it returned to the now desert where Netheril cities once flew. And it would still be there during like the modern campaigns in 5th edition, if not for about 3 to 5 years before any of the 5th edition campaigns take place. A powerful mage named Elminster, who is the main character of Ed Greenwood's books, and Ed Greenwood is the founder of the Forgotten Realms. Elminster destroyed the city, brought it down, because they were trying to do some evil things.
So this city accidentally teleported or purposefully teleported into the Shadowfell?
It was trying to, because it kind of foresaw destruction and the fall of the Netheril society, and they're like, let's get out of here. And so they teleported away.
So they teleported to a plane of dread and terribleness.
And there a lot of stuff happened to them. And so I think I'm going to bring up in another episode Thultanthar, because Thultanthar has a really cool story. And so,
man, if they're a wizard with 20 intelligence, man, I'm like 25, bro. Why wouldn't you do like a plane of paradise or something cool,
Because
you know?
it was probably easier, or I'm not 100% sure. Maybe they. See, that's the thing.
Heck, the Feywild's better than that.
I mean, I know by the end of it, they were worshiping Shar, the goddess of darkness, who is one of like the major players in the Shadowfell. So if they were following her beforehand, that would be where they would want to go.
That would make sense, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I know by the end they were all like very into worshiping her, so far as to follow her into their inevitable destruction. But that's a topic for another week. Like a lot of things in D&D, like a lot of the things we've talked about even, the Shadowfell's effects on creatures and its own environment are perfect tools for homebrewing unique variations within. There is so much room there to set up any story you want and create any unique monster that you want. Before I wrap up talking about the Shadowfell, though, I do want to talk about one of my favorite examples of the twisted reflection that it has. One of the major cities in D&D, and it's become even more well known because it's the name of their very successful MMO, Neverwinter. Neverwinter is a beautiful, flourishing city who, in the words of Elminster, is a friendly city of craftsmen who trade extensively via the great merchants of Waterdeep. Their water clocks and multi-hued lamps can be found throughout the realms. Neverwinter gained its name from the skill of its gardeners, who contrive to keep flowers blooming throughout the months of snow, a practice they continue with pride. Neverwinter also has this beautiful river running through it, and it's this great port city. In the Shadowfell, its counterpart is called Evernight. Evernight is a dismal echo of Neverwinter, full of undead and trafficked by unhinged necromancers, slavers, and followers of evil deities. But the most striking thing about the city is that the beautiful river flowing through it is now a river of lava that cuts through the city of Evernight.
Dang, it's the literal opposite.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all I got for the Shadowfell.
I was looking at the maps of Neverwinter, and you have the chasm in Neverwinter, and in Evernight, it's called
Demon
Pit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Dang. That's a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it has a demon pit, it has the lava running through it. Yeah, it's pretty cool seeing their maps right next to each other. Just the like slight variations in places and whatnot.
Does Neverwinter, so do the people in Neverwinter, are there like shadow people, whatever they're called, live in Evernight?
Yeah. All forms of undead, from shades, banshees, zombies, skeletons, vampires, to every type of intelligent and non-intelligent undead live in Neverwinter. I mean, Evernight.
And so it's not necessarily your like shadow version of yourself living in Evernight. It's just mostly like undead and necromancers and slavers.
Yeah, there's a lot of slavery and a lot of death and destruction. So it's very likely that a lot of the people that had shadowborn versions of themselves died out long ago or are the undead.
Got it. Does every city have its a counterpart?
It should, yes. Unless something has happened in the Shadowfell to destroy it. Because it's literally the same landscape, the same cities, it's copied over.
So then if you were to like, say, get a stack of rocks and stack them on top of each other in the material plane.
No.
They're not stacked
Nope.
on top of each other in the Shadowfell?
I think when Shar did her, this is all just me doing conjecture here. I'm not 100% sure. When Shar did her power and kind of pulled the negative energy to power up the plane and kind of moved it to where it is, I believe that is the moment where it was copy and pasted versions of the material plane. And it's just
so it's not like
diverted from there. So it's not like a constant keeping things copied and keeping things going perfect. It's more of a split at that point.
Yeah, no, I dig a trench, and a trench is dug in the Shadowfell.
Yeah. So my idea for our topic this week would be talking about creating a plane, maybe flying around with it a little bit, but
When you say creating a plane, are we creating a plane that's like the Shadowfell, or just
no, just
a
creating a
plane
plane,
in
just
general?
a plane in general. It could be anything. It could be more Feywild like.
First, you got to find the wings and maybe get an engine. You know, some pilots to fly it would probably be pretty smart.
You didn't laugh at my plane joke, so I'm not laughing at yours.
Dang it. Dang it. All right, so where do you want to go with this? How do you want this to, what kind of plane do you want to make?
Well,
Good, evil, neutral. That's our options.
I would say neutral.
Or
I kind of like
neutral.
I like those planes where there's no restriction on who's there, so it has just as diverse a economy and world as the material plane.
Do we want it to be its own entity, or like a little bit of like a natural, like, do we want it to be like a developed plane, or like a plane of nature? What do we want it to do?
I'm not sure. What do you think would be best?
Well, it kind of depends on what we kind of want to do with this plane, but I mean, a developed one would probably be fun, like making almost a different material plane. Maybe like a place where adventurers can travel back and forth in between two planes and explore different cities in a different plane. So that might be kind of fun.
Yeah, one of the fun things, I mean, it was also kind of what we talked about last week with those kind of Night Order that could kind of use the other plane to their advantage in combat and whatnot. The Shadowfell has, even from before it was easy to travel to it, they had spells like Shadow Walk and these other spells that kind of allowed you to move semi on the Shadowfell. So you were kind of using it to like boost you and move to where you want to go on the material plane by moving through it. So maybe it has some sort of utility use, this plane that we're making, like that. Maybe it has just an immense magical energy you could kind of pull on and use, or I'm not sure. Maybe it's really good for making magic weapons on. So all the magic weapon merchants travel there to get them because that is the best place to make them, or something like that.
A plane where like magic is really easily accessible and full of magic beings.
Yeah, it's like a world where, I know this is what we talked about previously, so people haven't didn't hear those episodes, where the weave was not restricted in the way it is on the material plane now. So that people are there, they can cast 10th, 11th, 12th level spells.
So do we want there to be cities? Do we want this to be unexplored? How do we want to do this?
I kind of like the idea of like there are some cities, but it's so new, this new world, that it's like a new frontier. And so there's a few people who've already set up there, and they've kind of grown into, there's a few small towns, and then there's one big city, and that's really it on this plane, because besides whatever is naturally out there. And maybe there are people on this plane, they're just on a different continent or farther away than these people have traveled so far.
Okay, I have a fun idea. So we're creating this plane that, for the majority, it's kind of like this unexplored plane that people don't really know what's in it, what secrets it contains. But there is like one city that is like a large, almost safe haven, like a fort where people go before they adventure out into the unknown. So I was thinking would be a really fun thing to do would be like almost like the end of the world type thing, like when people thought the world was flat, where you could like sail off the ocean and into the next world. But I think it'd be kind of fun. The way you get into this plane is there's like a large portal, a large rift in the middle of the ocean, and you have to sail through it, kind of like sail through to make your way into that world. And then once you sail through, you kind of make your way onto the ocean of that world and sail to this large city. It's kind of large frontier city.
Yeah, I like to think
so
that
the party kind of has to.
Oh, okay. I like to think that the city's been there for like a very long time, because it was made by people who accidentally fell into the portal. And there's been so many years where people are like, don't go, you can't go, like nobody comes back from there alive, because once you go through, it's really hard to get back.
Yeah, like a Bermuda Triangle thing where like these ships have sailed and they never came back. And
so just recently, they've kind of found ways to get through and come back slightly.
Yeah, so they ended up making a whole entire civilization and city.
Yes,
Um,
and just now you're kind of reconnecting those things. You're reconnecting this city they've already built over there, thinking their civilization was lost. They're never going to be able to find it again, and they're just kind of reconnecting.
yeah, I like that a lot. That's fun. Like, there's been a whole bunch of rumors. Like, you go and visit a tavern, and there's these tales and stories of ships that have long since disappeared in the fog, unable to make their way back to civilization,
Mm-hmm.
lost to time, never to be found again. But they made their way into this other plane and settled on this continent or whatever, this unexplored land, made this city, and are now like, it has now been found out that people can slowly make their way through, which would be a really fun like character creation thing where, say, if it wasn't all too long ago, like if you had an elven player in your character, something that lived, his dad maybe had disappeared on a sailing vessel, it'd be
Mm-hmm.
pretty fun to like, or like a monk or something who lives a really long time, or a druid, like kind of got lost in this plane and is now settled with this city. So then, like, that'd be a fun character thing to throw in, like if you made a character that way, because then you could have like backstory people, like character finds his dad there who's been lost for 100 years, 200 years, or whatever. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then you could even go so far as to make a West Marches game out of this, because West Marches game, for those of you who don't know, are games where you have like huge amount of players, ridiculous amount of players, and more than one DM. Like you could have like 5, or I'm guessing you could have infinite DMs if you really want. And whoever's available, you'll just be like, hey, we want to get together and do it. And so because it's this unexplored world, it's really easy to be like, oh, the other people just decide to stay in town, and this group of 5 decide to go out and check out this thing out in this unexplored world. They go east and they check out this rumors of an energy source, or rumors of a cavern or a dungeon. And so having it all be centered around this one city that is in this unexplored continent has a lot of uses.
Yeah, I like that. That'd be fun. And then like the DMs could all update and add information to this plane for as long as they were playing. That'd be kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of do something for my next campaign. I had 2 ideas. I was either gonna do that type of a thing where it was gonna be kind of a new world, or a dangerous kind of post-apocalyptic thing where they all start in a city and they there's a bunch of ruins and stuff because it's a post-apocalypse, and so there's a lot of things to explore, and the group will be part of the reclaimers trying to reclaim the world. And so if people are missing, then we can just say, this time it's a group of 4, or maybe just throw in another person that is also a reclaimer. And so there's more
Remember the world
freedom.
that I made that was kind of
I
like that?
do remember the world you made. Yes. It was not as West Marches-y is what I'm thinking, but yes.
Yeah, I liked that concept a lot, where you had like a single area that was like blocked by this magical shield, and outside that magical shield is
Danger.
a post-apocalyptic world, like a world that is much different than what most people remember it as because of this catastrophic event of some kind. I like that kind of stuff too. That'd be
Yeah.
really fun. All right, so let's say a party sails through this portal and makes their way to this new plane, and they make their way into this city. What do they find? What do they see at the city? Is it humans, tieflings? Like, is it like these? Is it just like normal
I like to
races,
think
or is it like,
reptilian races.
okay, so like
Mhm.
like, but at the same time, it might not fit the theme of, if it was only a single race or like reptilian races, it might not fit the
No, so that's
theme
the thing.
of
I wasn't thinking it would be only them, but I was thinking like I love
native inhabitants.
yeah. Like maybe they came and they were still pretty primitive when they came, but now they are fully, because it's been so long, they've fully caught them up on their technology. And so
I also like the idea of like, now this could just be me, but I also like the idea of kind of like creating this more of like a Star Wars tavern type thing, where there's just a menagerie of all sorts of different monsters, races, and humanoids all living together. Because once this plane was discovered, the rejects and the outcasts of society decided, hey, there's nothing left in this world for us. why don't we make our way to the new plane? Make our way
Oh yeah,
to the new
definitely.
frontier
Yeah, that totally
and
works.
start our own life. And so as you kind of make your way to the city, you see, maybe even things like hill giants or something like, ridiculous like that. Just all sorts of this like menagerie of goblins and,
Trolls and
all
hill
sorts of
giants
random
and
stuff.
stuff. And maybe even a few people that are like of those races that are more intelligent, like things that are normally just seen, oh, that's immediately a monster. That's like, I'm different. I don't
Yeah, like
see
a
myself as a monster. I'm going to go there and try to like create a better world for people like me. So like, I'm a troll, but I'm actually one of the smarter trolls. I'm going to try to set up like make sure trolls aren't seen as these dumb idiots that just regenerate no matter what. We're going to be something different in this other world. And so it's full of
yeah,
like,
or
it's
in
full
like
of like those, what you're saying, like outlaws and stuff, but it's also full of oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the word. Um Optimistic people. They're optimistic, but they're optimistic for a goal. I can't remember what the word is. But yeah,
like a
there's
daydreamer.
no, I think it was something with an R, and I literally had it on my tongue, but it just escaped me.
Yeah, but I was also thinking kind of like maybe it's even something like Oni, like this like an Oni, a group of like Oni or like all sorts of these random monsters that are like
Ettins and
yeah, just all sorts of things that can. I mean, yeah, you have to be within reason. Like you couldn't have like. I mean, I guess you could if you really wanted to, like some sort of like dog person, like like you'd have to like within reason, of course, but
yeah, I
like
mean,
of what your
I was
world
thinking
is.
maybe even Rakshasas.
Well, right. That was
In the main
another
world, they're
thought. It's
technically
like
demons, but they're like, no, we're not. We're more than fiends. We're not just these fiends. We're gonna be, maybe they're gonna be information gatherers, or maybe they're gonna be, maybe the Rakshasa wants to be a head of a guild, and he was always kind of laughed at, like, you can't join our guild. You're a fiend. You're gonna betray us. And so he's like, I'm gonna build my own guild in this other world. And so you go to this other world and you see these people in positions you never would see them in on the material plane, because somebody had to take the position and they were willing to step up. So they're the world. Everybody in this side's like, yeah, go for it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I really like that type of dynamic. I also wouldn't necessarily see this as like now maybe you would think of it as something different, but I wouldn't necessarily think of this as like the the party makes their way into the city and it's like, welcome to our town. We're so nice. Like I would see this more of like the wild, wild west type thing,
Mm-hmm.
like literally like Han Solo in a tavern,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah. That's what
all
I
this
was.
menagerie of
I just think there's both.
people all.
There's both
Oh yeah,
outlaws
yeah, I'm
and
sure.
optimistic people, because that's the same as in the Wild West. There was people that were going out there to escape the law or whatever, but there was also people going out there to make their fortune. There were people like I can do this. Like, I can't do this back in England, but I can do this here. There's so much freedom
Yeah.
here. Or maybe there's people who are just like, I'm really good with a gun, or in this case, I'm really good with a sword. I'm gonna go where I can make some money, because I'm not doing it very well there, and I will enjoy the freedom I have here.
Yeah, I also just really like the idea, and again, this might just be me, but I also really like the idea of the party making their way into a place that is foreign, different, not necessarily welcoming, but not necessarily like we're gonna kill you, but you know, strange glances. It's like you're a foreigner in this place. Like
So
I
you want it
love
to be
that kind of
more
feel.
like, I'm thinking right now, 'cause going back to the Wild West, like the gold panning, when there was this kind of super competitiveness to it, and any new person is just like, they hate them because that's more competition. And
Right.
so could there be something that all these people are going for, like a very clear, like, maybe it's energy sources, or maybe it's magic things, and they're like, this is just enemies. The next person here is most often not considered an ally. They're the enemy or the
Yeah,
competition.
I was thinking more along the lines of, again, I kind of go back to this example of like a Star Wars tavern where like you have these like I guess you'd like cowboys who are like all to themselves, like their own individual groups. They give you dirty looks. You bump into somebody and they're like upset at you for it, like
Mhm.
that kind of vibe. where it's like these rough and tumble individuals who are here because they have established that they can survive out in the wild, wild west. And I'm not saying there wouldn't be nice people, because there definitely would. And you could also then like maybe introduce your party to some of these nice people who are kind of like help them along the way of, like, oh, don't mind this guy. He's just kind of, he's just kind of a jerk sometimes, like that type of vibe. Is what I was kind of thinking. So like you kind of say they walk into the tavern to stay for the night, and there's just this menagerie of races all scattered around, just drinking and doing business of all kinds. So gambling, drugs, you name it, all sorts of just crazy stuff. And the party kind of has to make their way through this kind of mess of a tavern where people are not necessarily welcoming to them, not openly hostile until like something even minor happens.
Why is that? So is that just because the main people attracted to this are outlaws? Like, what is the reason for the hostility?
Well, again, I think I want to stress that it's not necessarily open hostility.
Well,
it's more
I
caution.
understand that.
But
it's not like if you talk to most of these people, they're going to become comfortable with you. It seems more like a hostility thing than a momentary caution.
I would say the reason for it would be is, why would an average person who is okay just sitting on their farm, going to the inn at night, making their way back home to see wife, why would they get on a ship and sail across the ocean to go to this deadly unexplored plane? I think that kind of place would attract more of these kind of like dangerous adventurer types. These
I do think that would be the majority
of society.
I was more I think when I was just promoting those ideals, and I remembered the word, it's an idealist. I think that it would be majority of outlaws and kind of people who have a hard life on the material plane, but there would also be idealists there, and I think those would be the people that would be very welcoming and understanding. It's like I lost where I was going there.
It was like well that's what I think would be really fun though, where like the party kind of makes their way into this tavern, for example, and it's not a very welcoming experience, but you do have this like one person, like I was kind of saying, who like kind of like breaks up this like tense situation and then kind of takes the party under their wing, like this type of...
That's a good way of introducing it. And I know I said this already, I would want it to be the Rakshasa, because that's so much fun to throw a fiend at the party and be like,
oh yeah,
all they show you is he's a good guy. It's all you've seen so far. And you're like, but he's a fiend. It'd be
super fun.
How do we, what? He's a fiend.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially
and then like it's kind of like
built into D&D, like you can't trust all these dragons are evil, all these things, but they're also sentient. You're like, wait, how can that be that they're all one way and they're all sentient? I feel like people have their own will if they're sentient, so there's gonna be outliers. There's always gonna be outliers.
No, most certainly. And then I think it would be really fun for like, hey, you guys, seem a little new here, a little new in town, and that over there, that's so and so, and you don't want to mess with him, like that type of vibe,
Yeah.
And then the party kind of gets slowly introduced to this city within this plane. So now that like the introduction of like the party into this city, we kind of see what that somewhat looks like. What is the plane itself? So we kind of have this dangerous unexplored land.
Okay.
Is it like adventuring parties going out into this land to collect stuff?
So I was thinking there was three main guilds that hired people. It would be like a monster hunting guild, a research and kind of learning guild, and then there would also be like a kind of a mercenary guild that like you could work with them to take people out there, people who are not as strong, or people that just want to see the rest. Yeah, kind of a guard.
Or even like a person who's been out there a bunch and then like guides someone to a certain destination, a certain place.
Yes, there would definitely be guides. I don't know if they would have like a 5-party guy. Like, we're gonna hire 5 guides. You're the adventuring party. You're the guides.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
But like Critical Role right now, where they had Dagon, and he's like
Yeah, Dagon.
this guide for them that knows the place well, and with him they can travel faster and better in the area.
Yep. And so then like you can have the party go on all sorts of these like little like resource gathering missions or like, and it depends on, what your players want and what you want as a DM in the campaign. So if your players want a campaign where like they just delve into dungeons and look at cool ruins and get magic items, then you can play it that route. If your party wants political intrigue, then maybe you can have the politics of this city, kind of be the main focus where, these different groups are sending them out into the lands to gain power so they can gain control over the city.
I mean, you could also
All
have
sorts of
it
stuff
be,
like
you can have it start like that. And I always love diverting expectations. So, like, if I was going to do a political one in that one, I would start it out making it seem like that. And then all of a sudden, during the party's expedition, they find another city. And they were helping people kind of currently build an outpost further out. And so they're like, wait, we're trying to expand. And then they kind of have the political becomes, oh, shoot, there's already people here.
Yeah, or even like a race to see who can expand to where first. So different settlements are being sent out by different merchants, like rich merchants, or different, criminal organizations, or different political
trying to
entities
find
that are
the
like
resource, the gold or whatever is
trying to find
good here, and then build on it quickly.
set up camps and all sorts of stuff to get, whatever it is that people are looking for on this plane, whether that's magic, maybe it's some sort of like condensed magic that you can harvest to enhance spellcraft, or playing along the lines of the weave is stronger here type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like the idea, and this is just me, along those lines of like a substance, and this might sound weird, but like a drug-like substance that you take that enhances your spell, like spell casting,
Mm-hmm.
like makes your fireball stronger, but it's also addictive and have negative consequences if you use it too much. I think that's a fun dynamic.
Yeah, that's nice because it's not a permanent boost that the party is getting. It's a boost with consequences that last for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and every time they use it, they have to make a Constitution saving throw, or like they become addicted or something like that.
Or like take it again. By the time the withdrawal happens, they have to decide. They have to roll that save, and if they don't, their body just grabs for more.
Yeah, and then like you can even build the whole city around that, so people are like going out into this land to like get more of this resource, to trade it, to do all sorts of stuff with it, bring it back to the main world. So that would be a little fun dynamic to throw in.
Yeah, that would be.
Because too, if you put something like that in your party, somebody's going to use it.
I mean, you hope at least.
Yeah, I mean, I know as a player I probably would, because I like, it's just like a fun.
I mean, also it's the thing is tactical. Like having those utility items that you can throw on before a battle, being able to be tactical about it is something really nice about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun because you can do like if you take it for the next minute, you can re-roll 1s and 2s on your damage roll for spells, or like you can make it however strong you want, but that would be like an example of what you could do, or make it, you can add an extra 2 damage dice to your spell casting, which might be really powerful, but like
it does sound
something like that. Yeah. But it'd be really, really fun to like, because I mean, re-rolling 1s and 2s is already an ability in D&D, so.
Well, yeah, that's why it's able to be leveled pretty easily, because you already know it's a like, especially if you give them like an ability that one person has as like a base character idea thing already, then it's not too overpowered. Even though there's some where it's like, that sounds very overpowered to me as a racial treat. Wow, I just said a racial treat. Yeah. I meant a racial trait.
Yeah, the only thing that I was thinking that you'd have to like be careful of is not stepping on any other player's toes. So like giving them an ability that like a player has. Because I know a lot of players can be like, yeah, that's my cool ability.
Oh, I definitely avoid giving it. If it's a racial trait, I did that again.
You said treat again.
If it's a racial trait that one of the party has, I do not look at it. I do not say, I'm going to give this. It's one of the ones where it's like, oh, nobody's playing this race. I can look at like, hey, let's give them Stone's Endurance or something like that. Where
I think it'd be fun. Like if they use this drug, they gain 1 luck point. They gain like 10 temporary hit points. You could adjust it obviously, and then like can reroll ones and twos on like a spell that they cast or something, or
Well, so
even
that's the thing.
on damage rolls.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I was like, one of the next issue to watch out for.
Like it makes you stronger.
Yeah, the next issue to watch out for though is it has to work for everybody. So you don't want to give something that only benefits mages or only benefits your melee attacking group, part of your group. You gotta. It gotta be something that
you could have it not benefit. You could have it not benefit everybody. You just want to make sure that you would like be sure to supplement a player who can't use this drug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in a different way.
Yeah.
So you could, but I like it like reroll ones and twos on damage rolls, because then like it would make sense because you're like taking this drug, it makes you really strong. So like even like somebody who's hitting somebody with a sword, they can reroll ones and twos on damage. But then somebody who's casting a spell, they also have this like this stronger power that flows through them because they're on this drug that makes their spells stronger too. So kind of like this whole, and then maybe a little bit of temporary hit points depending on how much you take, that kind of stuff. Maybe you can like replenish, or to take half damage on some stuff. You'd have to experiment with it, but it'd be pretty fun dynamic.
Yeah.
And then depending on which, for my next campaign, would be kind of fun because depending on the players and the characters they're playing, you can have people taking that, and that'd be kind of like a fun little side arc
of drug abuse.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's fun little side arcs of drug abuse.
Yeah.
That's what everybody enjoys about D&D,
growth, right?
The fun drug abuse arc.
Again,
I can't wait till our game gets to it. Oh, I'm waiting for Chris to give us that drug. Oh, it's exciting. The drug abuse arc.
I mean,
every
my character would definitely take it.
Seamus would.
It'd be so good for his musket,
Drugs are really good for when you're firing guns.
Yep, makes me deadly accurate, precise.
Well, sorry for everybody to be making fun of drug abuse there. I felt bad about that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a serious issue.
It is, but it can be a.
Oh yeah, doing it in game is not the problem. Like, if you can do it respectfully in a game, and also like,
yeah,
it's doing it in a game or just doing anything in D&D really allows you to not express but get in the shoes of a person going through that. That's why I think it was actually tested. I can't remember if it was actually tested or just something people say, but the idea that playing D&D actually increases your empathy, and like people are more empathetic because they have literally having to get into the shoes of these other people to play them. And that's kind of one of the things I'm going through with Elias right now. My character Elias in our game. There's a lot of things going on in his mind that are different than things I've experienced. I mean, they're similar in some ways and I kind of understand them, but just kind of doing a deep dive into like, why is he thinking this? Why is what makes him do this or want to do this? And it's really fun, and and I've always liked kind of like psychology and stuff like that. So really diving into his mind has been fun for me and enjoyable.
Yeah, that's one of the fun parts of being a player, is taking this journey, with your character. Being this character that is different from you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they always have little aspects of yourself, but. Yeah. Just being able to jump into the shoes of somebody else. And that's where even like doing like making a character who is overcome, who like, was using this drug and then overcame it, it's like a character growth thing, is a really fun fun thing to do. But as we were saying, you have to be really careful as a DM, because if you have a player who's, had any of these type of issues, even like doing sexual things in D&D, even doing, alcohol, all sorts of stuff. You just really want to make sure that when you introduce these type of problems into D&D, that your players aren't going to be hurt incredibly by it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all players are comfortable with the idea is going to be explored in the role play.
Yeah, and that goes with all sorts of things, like themes of depression, all sorts of stuff like that. You just really want to make sure that your players that you know your players well enough that they are okay with going through something like this. And if you're not sure, you should ask.
Yes, always. Yeah, even if you're like, oh, it'd be a fun story reveal. If you're even questioning whether you're like, is this okay? Ask.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Yeah,
but I think that would be a really fun, like,
it would be. It could be really fun playing on that idea and that issue that actual people have, allowing the story to kind of naturally go that way. Could be really interesting because that's one of the things that I think exploring ideas happen best when it's like something like this where you don't see it happening until it happens, and then you're like, wait a minute, that's how it actually happens.
I was also thinking that if you didn't want to run this more like with like an issue of drugs or like substance abuse, you could even just like kind of make it this substance that like hurts you when you take it. So like you take it, you can reroll ones and twos,
But you have a
and you
negative
gain,
two con or something.
something. But yeah, so you can just like make it so it has a negative side effect to taking it also. So if you were like not sure you wanted to run that type of thing in your game, like a player is sensitive to something like that, then you could just make it like you take this, it does this for you, but it also does this for you, like one positive, one negative.
Yeah, a lot of video games do it that way, where it's like they make it as a drug, but the drug gives you benefits and negatives, and so like especially in like the one I've been playing recently, Wasteland 3, they have a lot of like those. I mean, I I always sell all of them because I never really use those. Doesn't matter what game it is, whether it's Fallout or Wasteland or whatever. I'm just like, oh, all this alcohol and chems, I'm just gonna sell it. But the whole point of it is that it's there for people who want to use it. If there's a negative and a benefit to these things, and so if you want to be super not tactile, super like a super tactician about it all, weighing out every pros and cons and working to make every encounter be perfect quotation marks or just be very
like min-maxing.
Yeah, well, not even just being strategic, because yes, it can go too far and go to min-maxing, but just a person who like really enjoys tactics and strategy and trying to implement that a little bit without being like, okay, now on your turn you have to make this decision to other players, but just setting it up like, okay, you're going to attack from this side, you're going to attack from this side, I'm going to attack from here, and we're going to corner them or whatever. Just simply that, and allowing them to do what they want during the battle, or maybe even just being like, hey, I think you should do this, and that's it. You can still be strategic in a way that's not min-maxy and irritating.
Yeah, totally. And so I think you can make this like substance along those veins if you wanted to, because then you can avoid that whole issue. But at the same time, it can be a cool character growth if you did.
Yeah.
It's kind of like drug substance abuse thing.
Yeah, I got some fun character stuff coming up with Elias, and I was sad we couldn't meet this last session.
Oh yeah, Seamus is going to have a talk. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. They're trying to get a ship from like the most powerful religious group in the whole north side of the continent, and they're like, no, this will be fine. And so it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, no plan's the best plan, you know?
I actually, because there was a lot of demons in my previous campaign, the common phrase that just is now like a thing in my group is just no plan, because they're chaotic, so they're not supposed to be planning stuff out. So like, no plan. I mean, I can do whatever, no plan.
I'm the type of player who like wants to extensively plan.
I like to plan stuff out too, but I had to play demons that are supposed to not do that, and so I'm like, how do you do this? Even my not plans for them is like very planny.
Yeah, I relate. That's what I'm doing with Seamus. I'm just gonna go steal it, but I really want to plan out how I'm gonna do this. But we're just gonna do it.
You're like, I'm supposed to be chaotic. How do I do this? I'm not a chaotic person.
Yeah, totally. What type of like monsters or encounters would you be running in this plane?
So
like,
okay, I know.
Dinosaurs?
I was gonna say, I know this is cliche and stupid, but dinosaurs. Like, I just want because
Yeah.
Like, players want to be able to polymorph into T-Rexes and stuff, and polymorph into Plesiosauruses and whatnot. Plesiosaurus is my favorite. I really want to be able to polymorph into that, but I haven't been able to. But
yeah. So I
giving
was
them a
kinda leaning
chance
towards
to
the same
see
thing.
them, or like even for like a druid, being able to see them and study them to be able to use that form is super cool. We all know dinosaurs. We've all wanted to be dinosaurs, I guess, at one point. And so giving them that chance is nice to do. And even even in worlds where it's like there's no dinosaurs here, I like want to give them the ability to polymorph into a dinosaur. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. You can polymorph into a T-Rex because it's just so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Kind of like a T-Rex.
I kind of want.
all
I
sorts of
would also
dinosaurs.
take like the ideas played in Jurassic World and like the whole Jurassic Park series. Like there are even those
Yeah.
those creatures that are bigger than regular dinosaurs or different or altered than regular dinosaurs. This is the Megasauraptorus or whatever that lives in the water. You know, that big giant one. I don't know what it was
What?
called. It was some stupid name.
A Megasauraptor. Nice.
I don't know. It's
A really good place.
I mean, Megasauraptorus
really
would be
good
like a
place to, like-
mega raptor, which would be super cool. But
Yeah.
But yeah, just-
a Megasauraptor. Gotta watch out for those guys. It's a Triceratops and a raptor and mega combined to just form this Megasauraptor.
like a mega evolution Pokemon. It's exactly like that.
Yep,
But it's
yep,
a Triceratops and a raptor mix. Dude, wait, Triceratops is the one with the huge like frill, right?
And 3 horns.
Yes. Those with a raptor body, but like not that big of a head, but like that frill would be so cool.
Be really weird, but they like charge at you.
Dude, that would be so cool. They'd be so fast. They would be more hit and runners than they would be like just ram into you like what we believe Triceratops would do. It would be like a really quick out of nowhere from the bushes. They just ram into you, do a huge amount of piercing damage, knock you prone because raptors fight in groups.
Chomp on
Other
your
raptors
face.
would come out and then they would attack you as well, getting advantage because you've already been knocked prone.
Hey, this could be an idea. Maybe whatever this magical substance is also affecting the wildlife and changing them in like weird, like they are morphing together to form weird different things.
Yes.
You could do something like that too if you want.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then you could have your Megasauraptorus.
So what I might do is I might have eventually they find out something like there is one person who lives on the continent they're on, and this person's lived there for like thousands of years. There's some sort of thing that lives for too long, like maybe they're a vampire or something, and they fell through this portal earlier than anyone, and they found a way to survive, and they were like a wizard, and so they've kind of created these things and this drug that people just think is a natural substance now because of how he created it. It's now a part of the world almost.
I also like the idea of having like a group within the city that is trying to like change themselves into something different. So they know that this substance is dangerous and like
they want to become Megasauraptoruses.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Oh no, wait, sorry. It's you're talking. So they want to turn themselves into halflings.
Well, true, that's the superior race. But what I was gonna say also is that a really good place to find like crazy dinosaurs, like Jurassic type monsters and like weird mixes of all of them would be something like Monster Hunter. So you could just like steal monsters from Monster Hunter and add them into your D&D game.
And you could find a lot of models of them as well. They're probably too big, but if you want to throw something that big at your at your party, go for it. I bought a
you throw like a 20-pound mini onto your table.
I bought a Biolante toy, which Biolante is one of the enemies of Godzilla, and I have edited it to make it a D&D monster, and I love it. It's great. but it's also like the biggest mini I have because it's huge. It's a model for to fight a Godzilla model. So yes, it's very big.
They're fighting like a skyscraper.
No, so it's like this creature that comes out of the ground, and so it's so good. I love what I did to it. It's great. And so little minis next to it just look so good, and it really added to like their first encounter with it. It was like, oh man, this thing is crazy.
Yeah, it's huge, mungus, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's not Megaceraptor size, but
Right. Yeah, you know, those things would probably be a little smaller though, you know, because they're part raptor.
yeah, maybe. Well, looks like we did it again. Episode 9.
Another episode down.
Engineered. Now, Aaron has some ideas about how we might change the beginning part of these episodes. And so we might start doing those in the future, but just wanted to give you a shout out, let you know beforehand that might be coming.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be a surprise. This is all secret squirrel stuff.
You want me to cut this out? I feel like letting them know is better. Is better than just surprising them with it.
Of course it's better, but it's secret squirrel, so
you
don't
won't
tell
know
anybody.
what it is. Yes. Oh, everybody who's listening, shh, don't tell anybody. Shh.
You got to be quiet. The secret squirrel stuff is coming, possibly. It might have something to do with chairs and potato wedges.
We tried it out, guys. I'm just gonna say that we tried it out. It was chairs and potato wedges, guys. Chairs and potato wedges. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dungeoneered. See you next time.
Bye.
Oh.